Hey. Hello everyone, in this episode 1 want to show you a step-by-step instruction on how to create a model of a Viking axe, create a UV map for it and how to create textures for it in the Substance Painter program. As usual, I started my work by searching for a reference and an image that I liked I found on the Pinterest website. I optimized my workspace in Blender a little, so let's place the image of the axe in the lower left corner so that we can see it in front of our eyes and navigate. And also add a reference to the scene for modeling. And so I aligned the reference along the Z-axis. And I will start modeling by adding a plane, rotating it 90 degrees along the X-axis, and perhaps I will start modeling with the metal part of the axe, the one that is sharp. We go into editing mode and begin to arrange the vertices in such a way as to repeat the shape of the tip of the axe. Then we select 2 vertices and begin to extrude them down, step by step. At the same time, remember the main rule: the fewer vertices, the easier it is to manage the geometry of the model. Now select 4 of the 5 vertices and extrude them along the X-axis, but do not cancel the selection, but immediately press the S button and reduce their size a little so that they match the reference. Do not forget to correct the previous vertices so that everything looks nice. I recommend keeping everything in order from the start. Now once again select 4 vertices and extrude them along the X-axis, but this time let's align them along the X-axis using the combination SX0. Reduce their size a little to match the reference. Well, and extrude one more time. Now, in edit mode, select all the vertices except the rightmost ones and shift them along the Y-axis, so as to set the thickness of the chopping part of the axe. Now select the vertices, with the Alt key pressed, which we did not shift, and using the combination move the 3D cursor to the selected object. Then press the right button and set the origin point to 3D cursor. We need this so that the mirror modifier works correctly. So go to the modifiers, generate, mirror. We need to reflect the part along the Y-axis, but it will work when we apply scale and rotation. Next, we need to extrude the vertices, but do not forget to check the box next to clipping, then our vertices will be united in the center. After that, press 2 to switch to working with edges, select 2 edges and press F to fill the face. In the lower part, repeat the same operation, but with edges, thus saving a little time on selection. All the time you need to try to optimize your actions in order to save time. And so one of the 3 parts is ready. Now you need to make a kind of transition. Therefore, with the Alt button held down, select edges, and press ES and thus extrude the edges inward. But as we can see, due to the difference in size, it is necessary to correct the long side. And again, with Alt pressed, select and extrude along the X-axis. Using the numbers on the numpad, we can quickly switch between different views. Now select vertical edges and move them by Y-axis to make it more looking like a square. Thus, we will now model the central part of the axe. Now press the 1 on our keyboard, switch to the side view, and extrude the edges along the X-axis to the left. We are guided by the reference. The model should not be super identical, but similar enough. Now we press the ES combination again and extrude the vertices inward. Here we need to repeat the same operation that we did before and correct it a little to make the shape more like a square. We extrude along the X-axis and move on to the 3rd element. Let's call it a peak. I press the number 1 on the numpad, quickly switch to the side view and extrude the edges along the entire length of the peak. And all that remains for us to do is to reduce the size of the faces that are on the left. At the end, press the F button to fill the face and complete the blocking of the detail. And now we are ready to apply subdivision to our detail. Let's press Ctrl 2 and thus add a subdivision with a division of 2. Now we need to add several edge loops to strengthen the topology. For example, in this transition we can press Ctrl R to add one edge loop, and then with the Alt key pressed select the edges, press Ctrl B and slowly drag to the side. If necessary we can press Shift for increased control. Thus we apply a bevel, and with the mouse wheel we control the number of divisions. On the other side of the transition we also add a bevel. And for now I will leave it like this. If anything, I can always return to this issue. Now we can apply shade smooth and move on to the tip of the axe. In order to make it very sharp, we need to add an edge loop. So we press 1 on the numpad and press the K key, which means quick access to the knife tool. And with its help we add vertices very close to the edge. When ready, press Enter. After that, we need to add a vertex with which we will close the circle. And so we select Edge, press the right mouse button and select Subdivide. After that, we select the vertex and double-click the G button to move the vertex to the side and place it opposite. Now, using the J button, we combine the vertices. Add another vertex at the bottom and combine them with the J key. And now our axe has become much sharper, but if you look closely, the surface is not perfect. So let's set the subdivision surface to 3. Okay, now let's select the edge loop in this place with the Alt key pressed and use the Ctrl B combination to make a clear bevel, so that it is visually visible how the axe is sharpened. At this stage, let's apply the mirror modifier. And thus we will have a sufficient number of vertices to work with. Now I want to make a hole for the handle in the central part. For this you need to make at least 9 vertices in the upper and lower planes. Let's add square edge loops on both sides of the central part. And then press the K button on the keyboard and use the knife tool to draw 2 straight lines along the surface so that we can combine the previous 2 edge loops and edges that we will create with the knife tool. After that, select 2 vertices at once and press the J button to combine. And thus we have created a basis for making a circle. Select 9 vertices on the upper face and use the edge loop add-on in which we select the circle. Make sure that you have the edge loops add-on enabled in Preferences. In the small menu at the bottom left, we have the ability to adjust the number of degrees and select the location of the circle. And we need to repeat the same operation in the lower parts. Using the knife tool, add edges, merge the vertices and create a circle. And now do not cancel the selection of the lower circle, but press the 3 to go to the face mode and with the Shift button pressed, select the upper circle. We need this in order to make a bridge face. Immediately increase a little using the S button, but also press Shift Z to exclude resizing along the Z axis. Now let's make a clearer surface. With the Alt button pressed, select the round edge loop. And use Ctrl B to make a bevel. In the lower part, repeat the operation. Now we can move on to making the axe handle. To do this, press 1 to switch to the side view. Add a cylinder scene. Reduce its size until it matches the width on the reference. Place it at the very top and in edit mode turn on transparency using the Alt-Z combination, which gives us the ability to select the lower vertices. And now we can create elements of this part by extruding the vertices down along the Z-axis. As we can see, the handle is not straight and not the same width in different places. Therefore, we control these points and, where necessary, slightly rotate the edge loops. Where necessary, change the size. And when we reach the bottom of the handle, we see that it is necessary to create an element with which the axe does not slip out of the hand. To do this, you need to use proportional transformation, with which we increase and rotate the vertices in parallel by adjusting the circle of influence of proportional transformation. And when we have finished working with the location of the vertices, we can use the subdivision surface modifier. After which we see that we need to add a bevel to the very bottom face. We also need to work on the top of the handle. We need to add a bevel to the very top face and also adjust the size of the top part so that everything is clear, the parts touch correctly, and the handle slightly protrudes from the metal part of the axe. And we proceed to the production of round leather elements on the handle. In order to create them, it is necessary to enter the handle editing mode, then with the Alt button pressed, select the face loop. Press Shift D to duplicate this element and immediately press P and by selection and separate this element from the handle. Now we go to the object mode, select the created elements and reduce them along the Z-axis. Immediately increase the size a little so that you can see how the shrink-wrap modifier will work. Add a modifier and select the axe handle as a target. With the Shift button pressed, slightly increase the offset. Add the Solidify modifier. Check the box opposite even thickness. Now in the editing mode, add one edge loop, and divide it into two with the Ctrl-B combination, but do not remove the selection, just press Tab and go to the object mode. Now you can duplicate this element along the Z-axis. I counted on the reference, there are 8 such circles there, so let's repeat it. Now that we have them on the axe handle, with the Shift key pressed, select all 8 pieces and transform them into a mesh, which means that we apply all the modifiers to these parts. Now we go into edit mode and you can see that the selection that was originally there has remained. And I want to slightly expand these elements in diameter, in order for everything to work correctly. Individual origins must be selected in the transformation pivot point. We can also see in the reference that there are also such elements at the bottom of the axe handle, but be careful. They are a little wider. As I understand it, this is to make it comfortable to hold in your hand. And here we repeat the same procedures that we did with the upper elements. In the editing mode, separate the face loop. Reduce it along the Z-axis. Apply the shrink-wrap modifier to it. Add the Solidify modifier. Do not forget to check the box next to even thickness. Editing, add an edge loop and divide it into 2. Now if you take this element and lower it down the handle to the place where the handle expands, you can see that it repeats the shape of the handle. If the geometry is damaged, it is easy to fix by simply increasing the round elements in diameter. And now the Shift-D combination duplicates the round elements as shown in the reference. Well, when we have finished with this, we can immediately make nails with which these round elements are attached. A cylinder will help us in this matter, so we add it to the scene, reduce its size and rotate it 90 degrees along the X-axis. How do we reduce its size along the Y-axis? We need to round one of the sides. But do not forget to apply scale first. In edit mode, select the vertices and press Ctrl-B, drag a little to the side and use the mouse wheel to adjust the number of divisions. Apply shade smooth and you can install the nail in its place. Now you can duplicate it and drag it to the bottommost round element. And you also need to duplicate these nails on the upper round elements that we created before. There is nothing complicated here, press Shift D, but there is one point that they should be slightly smaller. We make sure that the nails are in their place and proceed to the manufacture of round leather elements in the central metal part of the axe. Very important, first you need to apply all the modifiers on the metal part of the axe or convert it to a mesh to increase the number of faces. To do this, in the edit mode of the axe handle, let's separate another face loop. Reduce it along the Z-axis. Increase it in diameter, to the size so that it is slightly larger than the central part around which we will wrap it. Rotate relative to the Y-axis. Place the element as much as possible as we want it to be in the future. It is even possible to shift the edge loop a little in edit mode so that the topology of the object is supposedly at an angle. Now the shrink wrap modifier can be applied, and as a target select the object around which we are wrapping. With the Shift key pressed, shift the offset a little. Now we can apply the solidify modifier. In edit mode, add the central edge loop and divide it into two using the Ctrl B combination. Now the wrap modifier can be moved to the first place, after which we just need to increase the offset a little. Now duplicate the object, then rotate it around the Z-axis by 180 degrees. It remains to be seen that he is in his place and will continue. Now let's make it look like one of these stripes is superimposed on the other. To do this, first convert the objects to mesh. To do this, in edit mode, with proportional transformation enabled, select the vertices we want to move and pull them a little along the Y-axis. And repeat the procedure on the other side. And so good, now we can move on to creating a UV map. It is needed so that the materials that we will create in the future lay correctly on the 3D model. So to do this, go to edit mode and first mark the seams. With the Alt button pressed, select edge loops along which the show will take place, then right-click and select Mark Seam. We check how it will go and see that it went in a circle and connected. Okay, we can continue. Now let's mark the seams that goes on the other side of the axe. We mark it in the same way and check how it was marked. Next, in edit mode, press the A button to select all the faces, then press U and unwrap. Now add a new material to our part, click on the circle next to the base color value and select the image texture. Click on the new one and change the number of pixels. I want us to have a pretty nice image, so we set 4000 by 4000 pixels. And also change the generated type from blank to UV grid. Now if we go to the material view mode, we can clearly see how our material will be laid on the model. And what we see in front of us is a very bad result. I did it on purpose to show you how not to do it. This happened due to the lack of seams on the model. Therefore, we go to the editing mode and add more seams in the transition areas. Well, as we can see, the result is already better, but I admit honestly, I screwed up a little here, missed to complete the UV maps and went to work further. Now I will return to this and fix everything. So we see that I went on to create UV maps for the details. On these round details, let's call them straps, it is necessary to mark 2 seams on top, 2 seams on the bottom and 1 each and 2 vertical seams. Therefore, in the same way, holding down the Alt key, click on the edges and mark the edge loops that suit us. After that, press A, select all the faces and U to make unwrap. We do the same with the second strap and make a UV map for it. So good, now let's move on to the straps that are on the axe handle. Select one of them, go to the edit mode and perform the procedure we are already familiar with. With the Alt key held down, select the edge loops that suit us and mark them as seams. Then press the A button, select all the faces and press the U button and select Unwrap in the menu. Great, now, as we can see, everything works well. Now let's quickly make a UV map for the nail. Go to Edit mode, select the back edge loop, mark it as a seam, select all the faces and press U and select Unwrap. Now we need to make a UV map for the wooden handle of the axe. First, let's make a round seam at the top of the axe handle, then go to the bottom of the axe handle and mark the round seam at the bottom. And we just have to mark the vertical seam, but this needs to be done in such a way that it does not pass on the front side but on the side, because the handle will have a fairly expressive wood material and it will have its own pattern and the seam will be noticeable. Due to the fact that all the straps we have are very similar, and the leather material that we will use does not have a specific pattern, then we can copy the UV map to the rest of the straps. And also we use this combination of keys Ctrl-L to copy the material, and thus save a lot of time. Now I suggest to do exactly the same with the nails. First select a clean element and the second from which we want to copy. And use the coordination of keys Ctrl-L to copy the UV map and material. Now we can proceed to the lower straps on the axe handle. Select one of them, go to the edit mode with the Alt press, select the edge loops that suit us as seams and mark them. Press A to select all faces, press U and select Unwrap in the menu. And assign the material. Now, according to the scheme known to us, first select the empty straps, and lastly the one from which we want to copy the information. And using the combination Ctrl-L copy the UV map and material. With a nail, I hope you already figure out what to do, right? So, as I said, I screwed up at the beginning, accidentally rushed. Let's go back and fix it. It's easy, we need to add 2 round seams in the hole for the axe handle. And do the unwrap again. So here we go, but as you can see we have some different density for our unwrap. For example, if you select all the parts and go into edit mode, our UV map now looks like this, and this is very bad. And also the scale of the parts does not correspond to each other. I want all the parts to be in the same scale, in the same density. To achieve this I'm going to use an add-on called Texel Density Checker. Just press Set My TD, alright, done. Now we need to pack our UV map. In version 4.2 I have not yet installed the add-on that does this. So we go to UV and find Pack Islands. We will simply click OK and get this result. It almost suits us, but the thing is that the tree structure will be visible on the axe handle and it should be vertical. Therefore, at the moment when we pack our UV map we need to set the rotation method to vertical. And then the blender will place it very well vertically. Everything is correct. Now we can slightly rotate and admire our 3D model. Look at the material, everything is in the same scale. Now before exporting our model to Substance Painter we need to do one more thing. We need to assign separate materials for the metal part of the axe, for the axe handle, for the nails and for the leather straps. And for convenience it is better to rename them. Now that all the materials are ready, we can export our model. Select all the parts that we want to export, since I still have a backup file and I don't need it there. Go to File, then Export, and select FBX. Now you need to check the box next to the selected objects. Click Export, whoosh, and we're in Substance Painter. Now we need to import our Viking axe into this program. I set the resolution to 4.000 because I want you to see a beautiful picture. And find our FBX file. Click OK, you can open it. At the top we have an icon or a croissant or a pie, click on it, it means bake. We need to bake the textures first. Output size is set to 4096, check the box next to use low poly mesh as high poly mesh. And also set anti-aliasing to super sampling for X. And after that we can click the button to bake the selected textures. You need to wait a little and go back to the scene. Now we proceed to the most enjoyable part of this lesson. Now we will add textures and you will see how easy it is in Substance Painter. In a nutshell, this program is somewhat similar to Photoshop, probably because there are layers, but there is much more control over the textures. Now in the Smart Texture list I choose the wood that suits me. Smart Texture means that this is a ready-made material and we only need to adjust it if necessary. In order to add it, simply drag it to the elements we need. In this case, everything suits me completely. The only thing is that it is roughness, but I can adjust it in Blender when setting up the render. Now I want to add materials to the nails. In the search bar I write the name of the material bronze, and simply drag it to the nails. Now in the search bar we write the word leather and it gives us a whole list of material options. Let's say I like this one in appearance, but we will need to adjust the shade. To do this, we add a fill layer. Here in the material settings we can disable the unnecessary properties of the material normal, height and metal. And we just need to choose what color we want to make the leather straps. I choose this dark brown and you can add a little roughness since in the reference it is quite shiny leather. Now in the search bar I write the word metal and it gives me options which are in Substance. I choose scratched metal. And drag it to the chopping part of the axe. It looks too perfect, we need to add damage. After all, this is a combat weapon. Right? So we add another fill layer. Apply a black mask to it. Apply the generator. Now in the list of generators we find metal edge wear. And so, it's already better. But let's add a little more wear level. Oh, that's better. But we can do even better. Let's add another fill layer. Add a black mask to it. Go to the Smart Masks tab. Here we also have a list of different masks. But in the search bar I write the word scratches. I find the option that suits me and drag it here to the black square. Here, it looks even better. But we do not stop there. Let's make the sharp part of the axe metal. Right-click on the mask and select Paint. Use F1, F2, F3 to switch between views. And so we go to the view with the UV map. And we have the opportunity to switch to the image where we will see only the mask. And now with a soft white brush we can paint in those places where the axe should be sharp, well, or there is a chopping part of the axe. Also, the mask on the other side of the axe also needs to be painted. And I also thought that it would be appropriate to paint the peak on the other side of the axe. When these parts are ready, we go back, switch to the material view. Now there is one more point that needs to be corrected. We need to add metallicity to the gray color. Well, that's it, our model is ready, now we can export textures. Let's go to the file, Export Textures. Here we need to select the path where we export them. Then we need to select the output template, here we find in the list Blender Principle BSDF. File type we set as JPG. Texture size set to 4096. That's all, now we can press export. A little bit of waiting and flew back to Blender 1, 2, 3 whoosh. Okay, good. Now let's connect the textures that we just made in Substance. It's very simple, point to the Principle BSDF and press Ctrl-Shift-T, then select all the files that belong to the wooden handle. Thus, Blender does the work of connecting instead of us. Now select the leather straps, point to the Principle BSDF and press Ctrl-Shift-T, select the leather material. Click on the nail and repeat the same procedure. Now select the metal part of the axe and also repeat the same procedure. I don't know about you, but I really like how easy it all can be done. And most importantly, what a high-quality result it turns out to be. The only thing left for us to do is to correct the strength of the displacement node, since Blender imports it and sets it to 1. And we will correct this moment and set it to 0.01. And also it seemed appropriate to me if we put some ancient Viking symbols on our axe model, they mean strength and luck there, that is, each of these symbols has some meaning. And you can see that I have already put it on the axe handle, and using the example of the metal part of the axe, I will now show you how this is done. And not just a logo, but with the creation of relief. To do this, we need to select our element, then in the next window we switch to the mode of working with the UV map. And click UV and then export UV layout. Now for further work I suggest moving to Photoshop, whoosh. And so, now we open the image of our UV map, and in the next window we open the logo that we want to apply. This is the image I downloaded from the internet. I take the round selection tool and with the shift key pressed I select the circle around my logo. I don't need the selection to be super perfect. To quickly copy and press Ctrl-C, then I go to the image of our map and press Ctrl-V. Now I press the Ctrl-I combination to invert the image by colors. Now I press Ctrl-T to transform and place the logo in the right place. And now we have to reduce it with complex manipulations, rotate it around its axis and place it in the right place. When ready we press the check mark. If necessary, we have the opportunity to use the R button on the keyboard to rotate the image on the screen to make it easier to work. And now since we are creating a mask we need to paint everything else black. So we add a color adjustment layer and paint everything black. All that remains is to swap the layers so that the logo is visible. Well, I also thought that it would be appropriate to immediately place it on the other side of the axe from the logo. Who knows how I'll photograph it. Now we can return the black background and export the image in JPG format. Whoosh, and we're back in Blender. Now let's connect our logo with ancient symbols using the mask we just created. Copy the principal BSDF. Add the mix shader node. Let me connect it directly so it's clear what's going on. Press Ctrl T and quickly add an image texture with coordinates and mapping. Let's reconnect it to normal and move a little to the side. Now find our image mask on the disk. Turn on the bump node. But we need to switch it to height. If you look closely, we have unnecessary noise. We can remove it using color ramp, connect it, and you need to move the white and black runners a little closer to the center. But don't overdo it because the edges will not disappear. And now we need to invert the colors, because the white color is squeezed outward and the black inward. Now if you mix two principal BSDFs and connect them, we see how they mix with each other. We just need to connect our mask that we created as a factor, and whoosh, look what a cool result we get. Well, that's all. Well, as always, learn hotkeys, they will make your life easier. Take your time, try different settings, and pray for Ukraine. Thank you, bye.